name is Mike Slinn. I'm here to talk to you about a personal project I've been working on for several decades. In 2007, I started the first version of code. I'm very happy to follow the previous presentations, in particular the most recent one, but this continues the theme of the evening. So I will be talking about my current and future work on hybrid machine learning, personality simulation generation, and a platform. So a little bit about me. I was born here in Montreal. I have a degree in electrical engineering from Carleton University. I've been in Silicon Valley for 23 years. Help, I want to come back. And I currently run a site called scalacourses.com where people learn how to program in Scala. I built the site, I wrote the material, and that provides me some revenue. I have been an advisor and a co-founder, and I've led some startups, and they've been sold to these companies, IBM, Otsuka, Microsoft, Yahoo, NBC. So I'm a little bit of business, a little bit of sales, but I'm an engineer, right? And I work as a software expert in the United States for IP-based litigation. My intention is to form a company located here, and I need contacts. I don't know anybody anymore because I left decades ago. And so by speaking to you, I hope that this will be the beginning of a new journey. So what is EmpathyWorks? If you go to EmpathyWorks.ai, there is information there. So I invite you to go to that website. And it generates and predicts behavior, including emotional states and group dynamics. So the original project back in 2007 modeled one individual. That's not interesting, I claim. I claim what's interesting is a group of individuals. For example, if you are in an isolation chamber by yourself in a steel can, no input, you are not a person. You have no one to interact with unless you're psychotic and you talk to yourself and you have all your friends with you. But normal people go crazy, they cannot express themselves. Only through interaction with others do we become ourselves. That's, I think, a truth in life. So applications of this kind of technology, what would you do with it? This is not a complete list, but here's some ideas. Toys, companion robots, artificial characters in movies and video games, political analysis, consumer behavior, modeling society and individuals in general. So it's a rule-driven approach. It's a declarative model, which is arbitrary. It's not designed to model people. It'll model any kind of individual. Aliens, robots, turtles, it's equally good. It's flexible, and you can talk about behavioral characteristics under certain certain environmental situations at different life stages. It's all very contextual, and it's time sensitive. It's aware of the passage of time. Here's 3 definitions I think you should keep in mind while I'm speaking. A persona is one individual's behavioral tendencies in a given social context. You act one way in front of your parents and another way at a bar where you're trying to meet somebody. Behavior is a persona's response to a stimulus. In other words, if you have a different persona, given a stimulus, you'll respond differently. So your persona is in charge of how you will behave. And personality is a collection of behaviors for a persona. This is a self-referential set of definitions. It's recursive. And that is appropriate because behavior is, in fact, when you analyze it, it's recursive. So EmpathyWorks models behavior in terms of relationships. Without relationships, we say you cannot really do anything useful or interesting. Now, we can have a discussion if you don't agree, but that's the starting premise. And models, therefore, must simulate entire communities with a variety of species, and not just a single individual. Family units and inheritance of characteristics are supported, and the idea is to simulate or monitor a complex web of relationships. Events cascade and echo through communities. Somebody's mother dies, their friend, the friend of the daughter is close to the family. That affects how they work at their behavior at work, which then, blah, 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 blah. And so this one event ripples through the community. Behavior is contextual. That's very important. Context sets behavior. That comes back to the persona. So relationships and other situational factors will provide the appropriate context. Choosing context is in fact a machine learning problem. Okay, that's interesting, isn't it? Have you thought about it before? That behavior is triggered and shaped by context. So responses, behavior is defined by how you respond to an event. That's what behavior is, right? Speech is not required for a response. It could be action. Action, in fact, actions are louder than words, right? Responses are predicated by life stage, worldview, recent history, and the relationship that delivers the event, and other things. And how you choose to show or demonstrate that there is an emotional state, you might tell an AI, maybe an AI application can query the model. How does this individual feel about that event, and why? We can answer why. The AI application itself might use, say, deep learning to generate a face or a sound, or I don't know what it will do. Maybe it will drive a car into a building. I hope it doesn't, but the AI application can query this model, as I said, as to which recommendations for several choices, given that on this context I could do A, B, and C, which is most likely and why. And then an action can be initiated. The model itself is defined through a variety of DSLs. I've built DSLs that parse English, JSON, XML, or you could just generate one with whatever programming technology you like. It doesn't really matter. The models can be updated while running. So in a simulation, that's not important. But when you're monitoring a live stream, you might want to start playing with your model to see which individuals will mimic the convergence of reality and prediction. You want to minimize the delta there, right? So you don't get a chance to restart your model because then you lose your context. So we can actually tune the model live. Now, if you introduce a new variable into the model, it starts at an initialized state. So it's a while before that's useful. And if the new model doesn't need a characteristic, you just ignore it. Relationships, there's many kinds, and including predator-prey. So that's, of course, relates back to an earlier talk today. I was most interested to hear about that. Group dynamics, of course, is key. Artificial personalities response can evolve and are inherited from their parents and dependent on environmental. We just had a volcano explode next door, and things are a little hectic today. And species-specific responses. So life-changing events, that's a category. Mundane events like eating, I'm hungry, I haven't eaten, and shared events. Those are all categories. And your responses depend on the life stage you're at. So artificial personalities will grow up and they will evolve. And every species has a different life stage. So you've got personas and life stages and different kinds of events. Things can get pretty complicated pretty fast. And there's inheritance. So as far as scaling, the goal was and is to be able to simulate the population of the world. How could you possibly do that? Well, CRDTs, in fact, CVRDTs, monoids are very useful for that. So if you know something about category theory, you would know what a monoid is. You can throw a lot of data together using event sourcing. So that's actually kind of a little bit about the technology underneath. So everything I've talked about, not all of it exists. Some work was done to make individuals modeling. The next step, which I want to take, is to do the community, the interaction between communities of individuals. And to do that, I can't do all the work anymore. So I want to spin out a new company and set it up here, and hopefully tonight will be a part of that journey. So we need everybody, right? We need technologists and researchers at universities and product management and people to talk to customers and investors. We need everything because it's just me right now, and that's not enough. So if you are a psych PhD, this would be a great platform for you to have theories that you could test. You could have a theory of mind, perhaps, and just see if it makes sense. So if you have questions, I'm here. I'm pleased I did make it through, and I even have extra time. So if you have questions, please.
Thank you for the talk. Have you considered the application, for example, on video games?
Yes, oh yes, that's one of the obvious places that we could go.
Okay, and the other question, have you considered also the possibility that these emotions can affect the decisions of these agents?
Well, that's fundamental. Your emotional state combined with the persona that is holding those emotions will determine the response to a stimulus. And passage of time is also considered to be a stimulus. So if you sit in the corner long enough, the modeled individual will eventually respond to the passage of time.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm sure you must be familiar with the sitcom Westworld.
I don't own a TV.
Okay, so that is a surreal environment that a creator creates, which is full of robots that are very human-like.
Okay.
So, so when anyone wants to do anything totally crazy, obviously people with a lot of money, they could get into the special island of sorts.
Okay.
And here the robots would be based exactly on
Okay.
human interactions.
Interesting.
You should see the trailer of it.
Okay.
When you get
I
it.
think I will. I see how it's appropriate to what we're talking about.
Yes, I felt a lot of things fitting in.
But my work precedes that, I'm sure, because I go back decades. So I didn't get it from them. So did you have a question?
Yes. So you were talking about contexts.
Yes.
And individuals in those contexts.
Yes.
But one basic thing is upbringing.
Yes.
So I might be someone who's passive.
Right.
To aggressive situation, I might have a fight or flight response.
Yes.
And a lot of things. So how do you model upbringing or something that's core to you into the persona?
This is where you combine machine learning with a simulation-based approach. Machine learning has some benefits here because the individual will train the system, right, over time, and so you know what those tendencies are. On the other hand, that's not enough because machine learning isn't contextually sensitive to the degree that we need. It doesn't know what a persona is. So we need a way to rotate the right persona forward and then start tweaking it and identify, should we actually be spinning out a new persona? Is the event that just happened traumatic enough or eventful enough that you're developing another persona? For example, a child doesn't go on dates, but once you start meeting members of the opposite gender, you will start to develop another persona for that activity. Until you have another event, hopefully, which might be getting married, in which case your persona should alter its behavior. We hope, right? If not, we have another problem. But that can be described in the DSL, the domain-specific language that describes the model that you're interested to a point, and then you need a variety of algorithms to choose from, and they need to be selected on the basis of machine learning, right? Because you can't algorithmically choose all the behavior because that just doesn't scale. And it doesn't self-tune because self-tuning to this thing is essential. So if you start with just a few variables, you can model a lot, and then you can start to tweak them. As you add even one more variable, things combinatorially explode, and it gets very expensive to tune. But something that you could do that I didn't mention, in the case of prediction, it's possible to spin out arbitrary number of alternative timelines and track them all individually in parallel and see which ones work, and they could in fact have different weights and Different parameters, a simpler model, more expensive model.
I have a follow-up question, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
I think you might have answered it already in part in your explanation. So human behavior is also complex in a sense that I might have done something in the past, okay, that I might have learned from, and the learning might have been drastic, so much so that I would not do it again. But if that is a machine learning model, it's going to gradually improve, it's going to be an exponent, it's going to be a gradient. That means it's going to...
So who's driving is your question. Is
Yes.
ML driving or simulation driving? Simulation is driving.
Okay.
It's getting events from an ML system, it's interpreting them, and then it's saying, okay, we're at this, we know the context, and so now which algorithm do we bring forward? Then we employ the machine learning for that. Is the algorithm or the behavior modeled with an ML system or something that's been hard-coded or some crazy mixture? Well, that's arbitrary. That's where the experimentation comes in. That's where the research happens, and that's why we need some psych PhD theses written. Fundamentally, here's a slide, I think. Yes, this is, I have a few backup slides, just in case we come to them. There's no such thing as a perfect algorithm, right? Flexibility is key. So design interfaces, not hard-coded solutions. And so the ability to say, this is the framework, this is the platform, and we can put many things in here, and we have a shopping cart that we can just plop in an algorithm for this individual at that life stage, given a certain criteria. We will change the way we're modeling that part of that behavior.
But it has to be all consistent with the persona of the individual, right?
Well, every individual has multiple personas which are contextually dependent. So that is a self-referential, it's recursive, right? That's interesting.
Michael, thank you so much for your presentation. I love your project. We have a high degree of alignment on that interest.
Wonderful.
And I was wondering if two quick questions. Are you familiar with the work of Craig Reynolds?
No.
And if so, is he part of your library of references? Okay.
I know nothing about, I don't know everything, and that's one thing I'm ignorant about.
All right. So, yeah, offline.
I'm sure I could learn a lot from you, and I may have some interesting things to talk to you about as well. I would enjoy it.
Absolutely. Cool. Cheers. Oh, yeah, those were the two.
Thank you for the talk. So my name is Nikolai. First a remark, there are auto-tuned algorithms in OR also. And actually there is even the equivalent of deep learning in OR. If you're interested, see me. So it exists. My question is very basic. Do you have fundings or customers?
Nothing.
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 E.
Well, you got to start somewhere, right?
Yes, true.
And first thing I did was I hopped on a plane yesterday and I came here.
Okay, I'll come back.
Yeah. I'm happy to ask. Here comes the microphone.
So you said you came yesterday?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm here for 3 weeks. This trip. I will be back.
Oh, you will be back to Silicon Valley?
I'm going back to, I still live there. I want to move here, and the first step of moving here is to come here and try to start making it rain so that I can be here.
Why you want to move here?
Good question. Number one, I was born here. I have family and relatives and friends from, birth. And two, je suis Québécois. And three, Montreal is a world center of this kind of stuff. And four, I've been told I've been crazy all my life. I've been thinking about this problem since I was about 17, deeply. And now I see there's other crazy people here.
Yeah,
Why would I not be here?
Yeah, in Montreal, no one will tell you you're crazy.
Actually, I'm already coordinated things as side projects from a few years ago. My wife has a PhD in this, and we came to Montreal just for that, actually. They have them in UQAM. They have a lot of things about empathy and all emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Yeah, she's now doing, it's like another field. we have to move to psychology. Well, there is existing models like fear nots, ICT. They are working on in California. They're working on big project on this. Like, they use a simulator, created like a personality for the U.S. military. They worked with Microsoft actually.
Yeah, so there's some projects I don't want to get involved with, and killing people
Well,
is
I'm
not
just,
one of them.
I'm just telling you, like they have a huge fans,
Okay.
so they make a lot of things, but it's not it's proprietary, so it's not open. We use it Fear Not, which is kind of open source and very well like enhanced. We also use Wrapup, which is a French product. It's like an agent with all the behavior, like you can get all psychology things. I think I'm working on it as a side project. It's something funny and like I like it. We are trying to do soft skills extraction from text. So we are using NLP.
Is there a question in this?
Yes, that's my question. Like, what do you think about like integrating the personality of like not the persona, the personality with getting the emotion? Like we're trying to connect the personality with the emotion. We don't have any thought right now.
That's a long discussion. I have thought deeply about it. There's much that could be said. I'd be happy to speak to you about that. It's not a quick answer. We need a beer involved. And, so yes, let's exchange contact information.
Okay, that's good. Well, on that note, thanks very much.
Thank you.